Our next guest was attacked by Donald Trump last night after he appeared on the 11th Hour with Brian Williams. Donald Trump tweeted, quote, "Just watched a world-class loser, Tim O'Brien, who I haven't seen or spoken to in many years and knows nothing about me except that he wrote a failed hit piece book about me 15 years ago. Tim O'Brien wrote a very successful book, which included a dismantling of Donald Trump's claim that he is a billionaire. And Donald Trump lost his libel suit against Tim O'Brien over that book. We've invited Tim O'Brien to join us tonight to discuss the Wall Street Journal reporting that several major banks, including Deutsche Bank, have turned over, quote, thousands of pages of documents related to Russians who may have had dealings with Mr. Trump, his family, or his business. People familiar with the congressional probes said more information will likely be handed over in coming weeks as the banks continue to respond to subpoenas sent in April. And joining us now is Tim O'Brien. He's the executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion and the author of Trump Nation. And Berit Berger is with us. She's a former federal prosecutor for the Eastern and Southern Districts of New York. Both are MSNBC contributors. Tim, congratulations.
Thank you,
it's been what, years since he's attacked you?
4 years.
Right? Yeah. And that means he really, really hates you when he doesn't attack you for years because he hates giving you any attention. But you tripped him last night. He just couldn't
We
resist.
Talked about racism, and that set him off.
That'll do it.
Yeah,
that'll do it.
A bad couple of weeks.
Let's see if you can get him going tonight.
Okay. Money now.
Yeah. On this. This is what Donald Trump said was the red line. If Robert Mueller crossed this line and investigated his finances, the red line has been crossed. Congress is getting at the finances.
And it's really important that Congress get at it because Robert Mueller decided not to go there.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate that he did because I think what's been looming over Donald Trump since he became president was he beholden to a foreign power or foreign entities who had financial hooks into him prior to assuming the office of the presidency. And I think that there's a lot to be left explored. A lot of money came into the Trump organization in the mid-2000s that's still unexplained for. The Trump sons have said in the past it came from Russia. And then after they got in trouble for that, the family said, no, it came from our own businesses. And then people said, well, show that to us. And they said, well, some of it came from bank loans. They've had varying explanations from this, but there is no question that a lot of money came into that organization in the mid-2000s, long before he ran for president. And I think a good investigation will get at where did that money come from, and did it end up with financial quid pro quos that haunted Donald Trump when he went to the office?
Or possibly co-signers, for example, on big Deutsche Bank loans. Did he have Russian oligarchs co-signing, guaranteeing his loans? And that would explain virtually everything about Donald Trump's behavior toward Russia. Berit, there's the public impression is that Donald Trump is fighting and succeeding, at least in delaying the execution of every subpoena out there from New York State authorities to congressional authorities that is going after anything financial. But he's slowing down some of it, but not all of it.
Right. And I think the key word there is delay, because I don't think this is actually going to be a permanent solution. So we know that at least for a few of the lawsuits that he filed to try to keep his financial information from coming to light, he lost, at least on the lower court level. These have now been appealed, and we're expecting these decisions to come out relatively soon. But at least in New York and in the District of Columbia, you had lower court judges say, absolutely not. Congress has a legitimate purpose for asking for this financial information, so the bank should have to give it over. What's interesting about the reporting that came out today is that some of this financial information is already coming to Congress, right? They're already getting some of these documents from other banks, probably records relating to other people, but they're already getting this information. This is only going to make their fight, in my opinion, easier when it comes to getting this information from Deutsche Bank and from the other institutions that have now, that they are challenging that in the court system.
So just clarify that point, that a subpoena may have gone out, because we're not exactly sure in the reporting what they have and where they've gotten it. But let's say they subpoenaed, say, Paul Manafort's records having to do with purchases he made of his Trump Tower apartment or other things. That could reveal something about Donald Trump at the same time.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a way of looking at sort of both ends of a transaction, right? So there's a concept in the law that you have to have standing in order to challenge something in the courts, which just means that you have to show some sort of legal injury to that. So obviously, Trump has claimed that he has standing for the banks not to release financial information about him. However, if the banks have asked for financial information from somebody else that happens to concern financial transactions with the president, he would not necessarily have standing, to challenge that document request or subpoena, which may be how they're sort of getting those documents to Congress right now.
Yeah, and Tim, he might also not have knowledge of it. There's so many ways, right, that you discovered in the Trump financial maze. There's so many ways in that they might not necessarily alert Trump organization people or Donald Trump that they're going in that.
And in fact, wouldn't want to preserve the integrity of the investigation. And to what you were saying earlier about whether or not they're looking at oligarchs or other wealthy individuals who also might have had their claws into him, and what Barrett was saying about this process is the banks that have complied with the subpoenas appear to have the ability to freely do that, which would suggest that there's individuals at that bank who are cooperating with this investigation or who at least can't get in the way of their financial records being turned over, who could be problematic. And that's where the names of people like Oleg Deripaska surface.
Tim, as an expert on the Trump finances, including the low points of the Trump finances, there appears to be, from the outside, an increase in his ability to obtain money. And he looks to me at that stage like someone who needs co-signers. I mean, out there in the world, you would say, oh, you have too much debt. You can't get a car loan. Can someone co-sign this for you? He would need big co-signers for the kind of money he wanted.
Particularly like when he bought the Turnberry golf course in Scotland in the mid-2000s. He has said that was self-funded. I'm very skeptical that was the case, and I think that needs to be closely looked at.
The modest phrasing of Tim O'Brien, very skeptical of Donald Trump's financial claims. Tim O'Brien, Barrett Berger, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.